Hey, Tommy here. I've got a political video today. What do you think of that? Hope you like it. Give it a little watch, will you? Some interesting stuff in there. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, get it done. How you doing there? Tommy here. This video is a strange one for me. I never dwell in politics. I think they're all much of a muchness. There's not many good, honourable people out there that want to do the right thing. But this study that I've seen going around in the news, it's not even a study, it's an audit. And it says that, here, I'll ask the question, what is the percentage of the top 68 officials in the Biden administration? What is the median amount of those who have actually worked as an employee, manager, whatever, have actually worked in the private sector? Okay, so what is the median percentage of those top 68 people in the Biden administration who have actually worked in the private sector, as in working for people like me or doing what I do, or in a business that has to generate money and make a profit, where the employee is actually answerable? What do you think the percentage is? The median percentage, nothing, zero. If you compare that to the Trump one, Trump's got over 50 years in business in the private sector, employed. You know, I don't want to go down that whole path there and have a pro and a negative, but it's quite strange that when the economy was run by people who understood business, it was doing a lot better. So if you've got 68 people who are all running these heads of these government departments, all they're used to doing is spending money. They don't have to generate it. They don't have to balance books, as in this week coming, I have got a fuel bill to pay, I've got insurance to pay, I've got some repairs and trucks to pay. So as the president of our little trucking company, what I'm going to do this week coming is I'm going to sign an executive order and have the United States citizens pay for the bills. Okay, that'll fly, that'll work. So that's the ludicrousness of it all. No, people, if the country doesn't have any money, it just gets borrowed. It adds to the deficit. If I don't pay my insurance next week, the next day I'm done. If I don't have it, it's a legal obligation. If I don't pay my fuel bill, I ain't getting fuel. So there's a difference between the private sector and the public sector. Me in the private sector, I have to balance things. I have to have enough money coming in to pay what's going out. You might have a little bit of leeway where you can say, can you wait till next week, or can you wait till this, or oh, I've got more in this week, I'll pay out more. I just don't get to write it off and pretend that the citizens of the country will pay for it. Another ludicrous thing about this is that, do you have any idea how GDP is calculated? So the government brings in money and taxes and generates its revenue. If I brought in our money coming into the trucking company, I would think that would be my turnover, that's my GDP, that's what I've generated. But no, that's not how it works in the government, right? How the GDP is calculated is the government gets to bring all the money in, like our turnover, and then everything that the government spends back out again gets added to what they've brought in. So really, my GDP for the company would be everything that we've generated, which I think is where gross takings, or gross domestic product, what we've produced. The government doesn't do that. They add all their expenditure to what they've generated. So everything I pay out in fuel and insurance and in wages and in truck payments and repairs, I should be adding that to what we bring in revenue, and that would get me my gross product. That's how it works in the country. So really the kind of way to describe it is that if you're working in the private sector, running a business, paying the fuel prices, all that stuff, you've got a limited amount of money. Whereas if you're in the government, oh, this program needs it, this needs it, this needs it. It's just a limitless amount of money. That's why they end up with these deficits. Now, the next thing is, I don't want to belittle people who are in the military, because, hey, hats off to you. Very grateful for what everybody does. The police, the firemen, the doctors, the teachers, these people who are working in the government, doing good jobs. Fair play, that has to be there. But what do you think the percentage of employees working for the government and companies that are actually contractors for the government, you know, like the mail, defence contractors, all that stuff. If you add all those together, and then you add all the independent people that have trucking companies and construction companies, shops, stores, the people that everyday citizens deal with on a day-to-day basis, there are actually more government employees now than there are people in the private sector. And incidentally, quick fact, those 50% plus employees, who do you think gets the most paid time off? The people working for the government in one shape or another, or people who are idiots like me that work for a living and, you know, try to generate something and create jobs and stuff? How much more time off do you think the government employees get compared to people in the private sector? Paid time off. 5 times. 5 times. Now the easy thing to say is, Tommy, why don't you pay for all that extra time off for your employees? You give them that. Well, it's just not there, because guess what? I don't have a limitless budget. Mine's is limited. There's only so much to go around. Speaking of budgets, the inflation right now, through the roof. It's high. But you know what? It's falsely high. Not that it's overly high, it is under what it should be. There are 2 things, there are 16 categories that are all added together to give you the inflation rate, steel and commodities and stuff like that. So I couldn't tell you the last time I bought a truckload of steel or a truckload of grain. It doesn't affect me at all. But what affects the everyday, ordinary people in the street is food and gasoline, diesel, food and fuel. Those 2 things are not part of the calculation for inflation. They're just not included in it. So eggs, probably double what they were a couple of years ago. Beef, double. Gasoline is more than double what it was 2 years ago. Those things are not part of the inflation calculation. Wonder why, eh? Let me have a quick look at some notes here. On the plus side, this is a really good plus side. The people who are working for the government, and I'm a truck company runner, truck driver. I run buses and trucks, and I just work for a living, right? So I'm not educated in dynamics of politics. However, and I don't want to knock this person because they've served in the military and served their country and done all that stuff, and fair play, if you can get a good job, go ahead and do it. But the head of the DOT, the person who is at the top of the tree in this country for trucking, the head man, okay, how much experience do you think that head man has in transportation? None. Zero. So trucking's quite tight for me right now. Fuel's high, rates are low, insurance is high, parts are hard to find, equipment was expensive, starting to come down. I'm thinking of getting out of trucking because the local hospital down here, they're looking for a surgeon to work on Saturday nights, a weekend job. Either that, the state's looking for a new governor, or I might run for president. I don't know. But I've got as much experience in those two jobs and the knowledge how to do those jobs as the man who's running the trucking industry in the United States. It just seems a bit wrong. You know, the head man in the country right now, as far as fact checking and all these things, and I don't want to start a great big political thing here. You know, people are voted in and that's what happens and that's how it goes. But he's never worked. He's always been taking his money from the government piggy bank. That's all he's ever done all his entire life, is taking government money. And I think, not to speak out against government employees getting all this paid time off and all the massive benefits, all the greatest insurances you could ever get, and I'm not jealous, I wouldn't want to be doing that, but it seems to me that people who pay their tax and pay into the government funds, I think when money's paid into a charity, you know, if somebody steals from a charity, it's a terrible thing, because people are giving their money and expecting that to go to a certain place. When money is paid into government, you would think that the disbursement of those funds should be done with a bit of sacredness, because it's other people's money who have been taxed to go into the country. But 50% plus of the employees work for the country in one way or another, plus one thing removed working for a contractor. The good thing is, it seems to be that the other less than 50% who are running businesses and who are working in the private sector, as in Walmart, just all the businesses that are not government related, they must be doing really, really well. They're actually generating enough revenue to keep the country going. So less than 50% of the people who are working, running businesses in the private sector and kicking money into the government, who are spending it to do whatever they want, and you know, they're actually covering the whole country's wages. It just seems kind of strange that the people who are getting less time off paid, generally less wages, probably less security, are actually paying the wages for the people who are paying money into the pot that gets dispersed amongst all the government people who are getting better terms and conditions by generating nothing. Now, I said at the start, there are people out there protecting people. There seems to be a lot of dead money that doesn't really go anywhere. You know, I've got trucks down in the oil field. I've been in the oil field in Texas and tried to do a bit of fracking in the UK, and it was shut down. They tried a well or two wells in one location. In Texas, in New Mexico, in these oil producing states, I have been there, I've worked there, I've got trucks there now. The infrastructure that is there, The money that these oil companies invest to suck the black stuff out of the ground, it's colossal. It's just, it's an economy all on its own. The amount of money that is invested in developing a lease that the government sells to these oil companies is vast. There are at any time between 300 and 500 drilling rigs, drilling ones, not fracking rig, actual drilling rigs running in the state of Texas at any given time. That's how big it is. Now, there's a big thing about Joe Biden going over to Saudi. In my opinion, it's a sign of weakness when you have to go asking them to produce oil when there's stacks of it here. The leases that were all stopped, pipelines that were stopped, and then you have to go to Saudi and ask them to produce oil. Surely the whole carbon consumption is the same whether you're getting it from Saudi and that's granted the world oil market, or whether you take it out of Texas and sell it while it's still worth something. Eventually the electric thing and the new alternative energies will come along and they'll probably work in the future. So why not sell the oil when it's in the ground? So these oil companies now are making a lot of money. And if you're in business and you actually owned an oil company and it was in Texas and you were told no more oil leases right now, would you invest heavily or and develop new wells, or would you just hold back and think, wait a minute, it's $5 for a gallon of gas and $6 for a gallon of diesel. If we just sit here like this, don't develop any more, we'll keep the supply really low and that will keep the price really high. There's no incentive for them to keep developing and going at it and developing more wells, because they haven't issued them any more leases. They've curtailed the amount of leases that have been issued. And these oil companies that are developing, oil exploration companies, they're planning their oil investments and their exploration decades in advance. So it just seems a bit strange that America, one of the biggest economies in the planet, with all that oil down the road, why the freaking heck are they going to Saudi to ask for more? Doesn't make sense. It's all there. Suck it out the ground, sell it, bring the price down, let the people who have got oil companies explore for more oil so that we've got a bit of a secure future. It just seems to make a bit of sense to me. Sorry if this is a bit different from the usual trucking videos that I put out, but I saw that and I thought, that is really strange that all these facts that are coming out there about inflation and the amount of people with a percentage of the time that they've worked in the private sector generating stuff for the country is zero. The median percentage is zero. It's probably a direct reflection on how the money seems to be flowing out the government to people now, and there's nobody wanting to work. There's not really any benefits to it. I don't know how it all works, but it just seems a bit odd, don't you think? Anyhow, that's my little observations that I've seen. I may be totally wrong, don't think so. If I don't have the money to pay my bills next week, you become insolvent. You know, I'm answerable. Whereas if you're in the government, then your department's insolvent, you just go to the magic money tree and peel off the cash and stick it in and sign the thing off and pay the bills. So nice if you could do that, but you can't. So if you haven't subscribed, please do that. That would be just great. Thanks for watching.